Hi, hello, and welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
We are here. All right, welcome to the panel discussion for the first film in our African American film series. I'm Essence Wilson. I'm the co founder and chief strategy officer at Communities First, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. We have a lovely panel that has joined us to highlight some of the important takeaways from the film and also to talk about the work that they're doing on a day to day basis. It's really hard to believe that we've been doing this for 8 years. Communities First started this film series to educate, inspire, and entertain audiences through independent or small budget films that feature African American filmmakers, artists, and subjects of interest to our community. If you happen to miss the film, which was played at the Flint Institute of Arts on Thursday, no worries. It is available on HBO Max, YouTube, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, or Redbox for about $4. So the film today that we'll be talking about is Citizen Ashe. So before the Williams sister and after Althea Gibson, there was Arthur Ashe. Ashe was the first major black male tennis star. And according to Wikipedia, he is the only black man to win the singles title at Wimbledon, the Australian Open, and the US Open. After retiring in 1980 due to heart issues, Ashe became a coach and a sportscaster. And on the activist front, he campaigned against apartheid in South Africa. And after contracting AIDS from a blood transfusion, he started the Arthur Ashe Foundation for the Defeat of AIDS. Eventually, he did succumb to the disease on February 6, 1993. So, with that introduction, I would like us to meet our panelists. So, we'll start today with Walter Robinson. Who are you and what do you do? And I want you to lay it on thick and tell us all the details because what he shared with me in just a brief few moments today was really inspiring and uplifting. So, they're doing really, really great work.
I, I'm a former tennis professional who my background is I went to Mumford High School. I played at Mumford, all state champion, 4 years in a row. Um, Played with some of the greatest players from Michigan. Corresponded to get a scholarship at two schools at University of Wisconsin and ended up at Pepperdine University and decided to go back to a reading study at Wayne State and happened to play tennis there for 2 years and had a great record. They're thinking about putting me in the Hall of Fame for doing some of the work out of their school playing tennis. My background is not too simple. I was just telling her I put over 5,200 kids through college on a full ride scholarships. Tennis has been my background to basically trying to level the playing field for kids to go to college or go to schools like Liggett or Brother Rice or Cranbrook or University of Liggett. I'm still teaching out of those schools that I just mentioned. Daily that I taking kids to sending them into the pros or the pro ranks, looking for agents for them to correspond with the ATP or the WTA. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm in the process of building a tennis club out in New Boston. Looking forward that I will get all metropolitan area students to come in to involved in tournaments and basically still rebuild the game. I'm hooked on to the United States Federation. I'm an ITF Pro, which is an international teaching professional. Um, I'll stop right there. I mean, that's enough. I can keep going. So,
Oh, that's fantastic. And I just want to, I'm blown away by that number of 5,200 students through college on a full ride. Using tennis and their skills and their talents that you assisted them in developing to make that happen for them. So it's just one of those initial reminders that sports can be a gateway to so many other things, and so just want to just acknowledge that as just an accomplishment for you personally and those that you work with. That is just phenomenal.
thank you.
And I saw Liddell's face when he said that number. And I was, you start thinking, well, do I need to get my kid in tennis? Send him over to Mr. Robinson so we can, save on that bill when that time comes.
I must say that I'm not the one who kept that number. I was in a meeting on Wednesday morning at U of M, and the coach of U of M pulled the number up and told me the number.
Wow.
And I don't never talk about that stuff
Yeah.
that I'm hooked on to, but he told me the number that the record says that you're at 5,200. And he's like, I know it's more than that, but
Yeah.
the,
And I
the
think
number,
I think that also speaks to, sometimes we just do the good work, right? We're not
exactly.
keeping track. We're not trying to, check a box, right? We're doing the good work, and the proof is in the pudding for sure. So,
Yeah.
Liddell, welcome, welcome. We're pleased to have you with us today. So, could you tell us who you are and a little bit about your background?
I sure can. I wish I would have went first. Absolutely, definitely. A great person to could have come behind. But yeah, my name is Liddell Lewis, born and raised in the Flint area. Um, Former athlete in the city of Flint. My I was part of the Flint Northern's girls basketball team, and we won multiple state titles, and we were inducted into the Genesee County Hall of Fame. And we were looking to be inducted into the African American Hall of Fame, but COVID came, so we are definitely still looking forward to for that placement. This fast forwarding, I just call myself a community champion. I just do things to help better the life of Flint residents.
Wow.
Awesome. Thank you for all that you do on a day-to-day basis, and it shows up in many ways. Your service as a council person, and also just meeting the needs of community members, creating space and opportunity for conversations, programming in the parks, and all of the things. And kudos. And I did not know about your athletic accomplishments. So thank you for sharing that. I did not know. You learn something new about people when you have them on camera with you. So we'll talk about our first question. I'm going to start with you, Liddell. Um, Prior to the film, what did you happen to know about Arthur Ashe's life?
All that I knew is that he was a great tennis player and that he succumbed to the AIDS virus. Because again, uh, his type of work was not highlighted in any of my history books or in any of my history classes. And yeah, and so it was very limited. So that movie was very eye opening. So those were the only two things that I've known for certain about Mr. Ash.
And I'll agree with you on that. Those were the only two things that I knew. So I think that's shows that history didn't change much, right, in terms of what was being taught in schools. Between when I was there and when you were there, there's definitely some more work to do in that arena. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Mr. Robinson, he had a secret. I didn't know this, and I guess maybe it wasn't a secret. But as a professional tennis player, you actually knew Arthur Ashe. So tell us about what you thought about him initially, what you ended up thinking about him, and then maybe a little bit about what type of man you saw him to be.
As me, let me quote this as me trying to be a professional tennis player, definitely a definite idol. There's no question. Um, a black guy winning the U.S. Open, sitting down and watching the match, knowing Tom Ocker, who played the match, understanding what Tom Ocker did at the time. And I'm thinking that I'm about 12 or 13 years old at the time, getting ready to go into Mumford High School. Um, I have a picture right now in my hitting lane trying to be Arthur Ashe, trying to take my mouth in a certain way, how he hits the serve and hit this American twist. And believe it or not, I just got through winning the tournament. And they put this highlight on the Detroit newspaper, and I'm like, oh my God, they're trying to make me look like Arthur Ashe. And the picture came out on the front page, and I sent the picture to the USTA, and Ash told me, "You're trying to be like me, huh?" And so it was that was quite an honor at that particular time because I was only 13 years old. And but knowing Arthur Ashe, as I entered the tour, I entered the tour when tennis was quite big. Um, I played the tour at the time called the American Express. Arthur Ashe at the time was playing three tours. He was playing the ATP tour. He played the World Tennis Championships of tennis. If you, I understood the tape, I mean the video very very well to what he was doing, and also too he played what we call the Davis Cup, which was highlighted throughout the world. And so what I thought of Ashe as a tennis player was like he was phenomenal. As I got more personalized in knowing, I didn't like him too much because I kind of knew that at the particular time there were better tennis players better than Arthur Ashe, and so not to fault him or or talk negative about him, it was just that as I'm dealing with today in my teaching across the board, it doesn't matter if you're black or you Hispanic or you Chinese or you um, any type of what I call it race besides white. It's very difficult to come into the game of tennis and try to level the playing field, which is money. And so as we start looking at the scholarships around the country uh, and looking at Arthur Ashe, I'm just looking at what we could have did back then to what we could do today, and that's why I'm still in the game, basically.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
Well, I'll kind of cut that off. And,
Look,
my wings get kind of long there.
yeah, thank you for that. No, much appreciated. And I think, having someone, here with us that actually knew the man, right? And was with him when he was at the height of his game. I think it's just really helpful to provide context. A lot of times when we talk about historical figures or we talk about history in general, it's just, almost a foreign thing. It's something that happened a long time ago and it's not relevant. But I think when you have somebody that has personal experience, it just makes it a little bit more real. So thank you for sharing that. So Liddell, as we talk about history, and we alluded to this a little bit ago, this story wasn't in my history books. Even during Black History Month, I want to say we got maybe a paragraph, and that was about it, maybe about his life, and the lives of a lot of historical figures. So I'm grateful that this story was told because it highlighted so many things that I just wasn't aware of, and it was a really powerful story. So why is it important for us to tell a more complete history, and how does that benefit us all?
Well, it's important because as you hear the word his story, that story belongs to that person over there. That his story of what happened, and so this gives us it I guess a more holistic account when we start talking about the accomplishments of our African American people, and then looking at how our African American people have shaped history to and compared to what's going on today. Like we're talking about the whole Kaepernick thing. When we're talking about our athletes getting involved in the politics, so this wasn't anything new. Hearing, learning about Arthur Ashe, it shows us that this happened a while ago. Our forefathers, hence Arthur Ashe is one of those, how they laid the pathway for us to get involved and take a stand, political stand, via our through our trade, and so it's just important to make sure that we tease out these important contributions to our history because unfortunately Arthur Ashe, his legacy in our books, in our class and our structured learning was as um, I would say it was as thorough as that one sentence line about Crispus Attucks. He was in the books with one sentence. That was all. And I trust that he had a bigger role in history. And so this movie, it allowed us to tease that out, to take a bigger glimpse and to view life through his lenses. And I definitely appreciate that. Definitely appreciate it. And then it allows me to have a better understanding so I can also go and tell other people. Because, we have African American History Month, 1 month, the shortest month of the year. And we try to cram in so much good stuff in that month. And so, Arthur Ashe, he's just one of the greats that we need to know because we have a rich history in this country and it needs to be brought out.
And even this film series, initially when we pitched the idea for it, the first thing that someone said was that would be a great thing for us to do. You could do 1 week through the month of February. And we said, absolutely not. So the film series is structured so that we are discussing and viewing one film a month from November through February. Um, because again, that history is much bigger. Our collective history is much bigger than you could, pigeonhole into to 1 month or at one time period. And so I would ask, a similar question to you, Mr. Robinson, someone with a little bit more history than the two of us, right? Why is it important for us to all, just have a better understanding and a more complete picture of our collective history?
Before I start to talk about that, I would say to you, both of you, as being on this show, I would like to tell you the greatest tennis player of our all time is definitely Arthur Ashe as a man, but the greatest tennis player of all time until today is Althea Gibson. And I would definitely like to tell both of you that I had a chance to see her play in person, and I know we have a big outlet of Serena and Venus and the girls who basically changed the world, who have a big interest as far as the money side to it of owning the Dolphins and doing some great big time things. But in my history of wanting to play the game, Althea Gibson was definitely the icon to the black world. She was unbelievable, meaning that her winning Wimbledon, being invited into England as the case of a black woman, we kind of forget that there's been stages in our lives for us to look at on both sides to kind of say that she opened a lot of doors for a lot of kids who came through her program to be successful. So yes, as I talk about Arthur Ashe, but the real story is really Althea Gibson, and I would like both of you to know that. The class act of not being able to go to bathrooms and not being able to share the same locker room with the ladies, not being able to eat at the same tables with the queens, and understand that she was brought back in after the tournaments were played and won them, uh, was like unbelievable to me. That she took on a real big step to say that we have a class act that is on our mark, and I speak that to both of you today.
Yeah. And you both highlighted, I think, the same thing in a slightly different way, that our history is very connected. And oftentimes we have a habit of picking out, one person,
Hmm.
and we forget about how connected they were to the past. And then if we take another glimpse of it in the future, we'll see how they had an impact on the future. So it definitely is a continuum when it comes to history. So, thank you both for recognizing and mentioning that. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. But to talk about Arthur Ashe, I played in the South. Uh, in fact, I won some tournaments in the South. Just talking about the Orange Bowl 2 years earlier, but I won some tournaments in the South. I won some in Alabama. I won some in Tennessee. That was basically highlighted that in the finals, there have been Coke bottles thrown at me, and a lot of things have happened to me back in that day. Talking about like early 70s, not the 60s, but early 70s, where they were not used to seeing a black man walk out on the tennis court playing professional tennis. So coming through the ranks and after the tournaments being very, very cordial and very nice. We I basically have had to take on some of the real big um, racist complaints playing back in those times because a racket, number one, here in Detroit, Michigan, you were basically gay if you had a racket, or there was something wrong with you for carrying rackets to school, or thinking about doing something where you're trying to positive yourself, but they didn't really understand anything about the game. So Arthur Ashe was really the guy who says, I have a stepping stone of coming in, making a way for the black kids to come in and give tennis a try, basically. So that's my history I mean, real history of playing back in that day.
Wow. And I don't know that we could really imagine a world where that was the case, but at the same time, it's not maybe sometimes so far fetched and so far away from where we are right now. And so to that, I would ask Liddell the question. In the 60s and 70s, there were a lot of civil rights activists, and everybody had their own style for bringing about change. So I'm just curious. I know some of the things that you have done in the community. How would you describe your own strategies or methods or style for bringing about change?
Wow. Um, my style. Mm, I don't know. That's a tough one. I hopefully this doesn't seem like a weird question, but I put it back to you. One of the people that watch me in the community. I may think that, hey, I'm taking the Martin Luther King peaceful approach. And you might say, Liddell Lewis, you're going in, turn over tables in the temple. So, what do you think, Essence?
I will say you're the first person that I've had in one of these conversations that has done that to me. How would I describe you as a leader? I think the thing that I would say is that you've been very consistent, and you try to learn as much as you can, um, and that you, from everything that I've seen, are a champion and an advocate for people and for the community. And so, I think with anything and everything, right? Some people love it, some people hate it, some people don't like the way you go about things. But I think, we just have to, like everything, right? You stand on the results that you're able to produce. And so, hopefully that was helpful. Thank you very much, Dr. Lewis, for putting that back on me. And I would ask the question of you, Mr. Robinson. You know, you've had a chance to see many, many, many students. So there was the 5,200 that we can say were on scholarship, but
Yep.
there have been thousands and countless number of others. So can you just maybe share one story from your experience about a time where you had an impact on the life of a young person?
Wow. Oh my God. uh, my greatest player who ever played for me basically was, I would say the norm would be that he was a retarded kid. He was a kid who came. His name is Brian Adams, who came to me. It's been about 30 years ago, and the reason why he came to me, he's seen the best kids play tennis in my summer program, and he felt like an outcast that he wasn't basically invited into the group. And so him and his dad came to me and asked me, and in a couple of words, Walter, what would it take for me to be a tennis player? And I said, Brian, are you serious? I'm saying, I'm not going to kick you out of my office, but are you really serious? He said, yes. I said, well, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to call the recreation center and I'm going to put you in a pool. And he says, and so his dad is looking at me. So he kicked his dad out and he kicked his dad out to say, I'm going to take the notes on exactly what you want me to do. So I set up pool dates 3 days a week. I set up a dance class for him to get half his body back where he could work his half to get it more stronger. I set up a weight room class for him, and I set up a reading class for him where he could start talking normal. In a 9 month time, not only he could walk straight, in a 9 month time, his body was bigger on the right side than it was on the left side. Um, his mother came to me and hugged me and kissed me and did everything that I really didn't ask for, but basically bowed down to me and said I thought I would never have my son back to would never have my son back this way ever in my lifetime. And so I gave her her son in a manner of basically playing tennis at a high level to get his body back. And he she came back to me and then and a year later when I gave my summer camp, the kids did not know him. They were like, "Who are you?" And then one of the kids recognized and said, "This is impossible." And he ended up going to U of M, playing tennis for U of M. That I would say that would be one of my biggest highlight stories that I could ever think about in my day. As far as success, not so much of the tennis matches or being successful to go on the tour.
Yeah.
That would be my highlight.
Yeah, a lot of times when it comes to sports, it goes above and beyond, just training someone so that they can perform on the court or
Yeah,
perform in a match. And a lot of times it is the coaches that fill the gap and that do things, beyond what they're responsible for. But they have a heart and a passion to, work with young people and help them. And I'm sure that that young man and his mother are deeply appreciative to you for all that you did for them. That is I just couldn't even imagine, right?
hmm
It seemed like a simple thing. You normally would just do your evaluation, see if they have the aptitude for the sport, kind of make a determination. But you did far more than what was required of you, and I thank you for that
uh,
because it
uh,
had to have been life changing for them. So
but
look, oh,
again, that comes from Arthur Ashe too. I mean, as we talk about Arthur Ashe, giving the kids a chance to perform just at a level that I think their parents could not ever dream of that he would perform at a level like
yeah.
that.
That's when we walk the walk instead of just talking the talk, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And Dr. Lewis, I'd ask you. You spoke a little bit about your involvement with sports. What impact did sports have on your life? How did you find sports to be beneficial?
Well, if you don't mind, I would like to just speak in general about that. So, sports was an outlet. I have an older sister. She's almost 10 years older than me, so she wasn't really around. And so growing up as only child, it gave me an outlet. It gave me a way to fellowship and integrate with other kids in a meaningful way. And what I've noticed that I noticed that a lot of youth they had, and this is a big reason too why I'm really heavily involved in parks. So it'll kind of all ties together. So sports is all some kids have. It's all the attention that they receive, because they're not getting it at home. It's the only place where someone really cares about them and their well-being, meaning just like Mr. Robson was saying, the extra thing that he went over and beyond, because he just could have been like, up, you don't cut the mustard, so you don't qualify for this team next. No, he invested into the youth. And so um and so that investment really changed a lot of people's lives, because you're just not coach. No, you're not. You are coach, you are mentor, you are uncle, you are teacher, and you are also dad to many, mom or dad. And so that's what a lot of people get out of sports. It is a home away from home. It's it is a sneak peek into the possibilities of what can happen or what could be. And so that's what it meant to a lot of people, that play sports. I'm gonna say, but as for me, it gave me a way to connect with other young people while doing something that I enjoyed.
Absolutely.
And I would say, so I was a tennis player, if if you could even call me that, right? So I played. I said I was the best player on the worst team in the city. And so like, but I remember, playing on the team, learning, having two fantastic coaches who took the time, who invested in us. I made all city 1 year. uh, it was a great experience, and it's something that I probably could have taken further. And I ended up going to a school that didn't have a tennis program. It was a small private college. So I play recreationally when I'm able to, but I just have really positive, fond memories of my time. Playing tennis, and the other students that were on the team, and us becoming friends and having to work together as a team, and pushing one another to be better. And I think that that translates into our business and professional lives. If you have a good team, you do that. You challenge each other to be better. It's not a competition. We're all working in the same direction, or at least that's how we see it at our organization, right? We're all working in the same direction for the same reasons, and trying to be successful. So Arthur Ashe, he was one of those people, and it resonated through the film that he challenged us to all do better. He was a spokesperson for those in need and a champion for many social causes. Just curious from your perspective, and we'll start with Dr. Lewis. What are some social issues or societal issues that you think need to be addressed in 2022?
Wow. I would like to say, we have to, when we start talking about racial inequity amongst African Americans, uh, those things really need to be addressed because when we start digging deep into our rich history in this country, and also when we start talking about the justice claim that we have in this country, um, it gets a lot of other people uncomfortable. And so it's important for us to get knowledgeable and, for one, yeah, get knowledgeable of our true history. Because again, just like Arthur Ashe, he's one of the greats. But we have a history in this country where we have been, I'll say, delayed by policy. We're one of the few groups that literally had policy in place, set forth, so we could not progress. Law did this. So in order for us to be made whole, we need to be, I'll say, made better, made whole by law. If law put us in a situation, then we need for policy and law to get us out. And so, um, just like Arthur Ashe brought up different social issues, we have our athletes bringing up the same social issues to this day. And by us getting knowledgeable and taking a stand on these issues, that's the only way that we can progress. And it's important because I really didn't learn much about Black history until after I received a PhD.
Wow.
And 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 that's horrible. That is horrible because our history is American history. The blood in the soil is what helped make America what it is. And it's just unfortunate whenever we begin to talk about African American contributions, and the toils and the trouble that got us to this place. A lot, like I say, it makes people uncomfortable. So it is our goal for us and for my child to know our history before you become 40. so you can understand where you come from, so you can understand where you going. But but I really can't wait until the day comes to where, like I'm saying, if we don't understand our history, other people did not make it their priority to understand our history too. And so once we all have an understanding about the plight of the African American in this country, I think that we will be able to move very differently. And I would just stop there.
Mr. Robinson, what do you think are some social or societal issues that need to be addressed in 2022?
Uh, I'm working on a program right now that one of the reasons why I'm building a tennis club is I'm trying to level the playing table. When I came up, Bill Cosby sponsored me, so I had the money package that was behind me, meaning that I'm spending anywhere from fifty to $100,000 a year to play tennis. So me saying that, I could absolutely go and compete. Dr. Johnson, on if you study the movie of Arthur Ashe, you're looking at Dr. Johnson, who was a doctor who basically had five doctors to enter Arthur Ashe in UCLA, basically take care of his room and board. You talk about traveling all over the world, but Arthur had, it just didn't happen by overnight to say that he was Arthur Ashe. He had a dad who was a doctor. So the chip in to what it costs is a lot of money. If I look at the basketball world, if I look at the football world, and I mean, if I really, really look at it, the city of Detroit has a lot of great football players that come out of Detroit, but we don't have the money to put them in what I call private lesson programs to stay in school and learn how to be a quarterback, a fullback, a halfback, or growing into. I mean, they can do it a little bit in the high schools, but you're looking at phenoms who basically come out of high school to get a college scholarship. So my program is is not just for tennis. It's a program to say, hey, look, I would like to give you an education, but also too, you can take on the game of tennis. You can take on the game of golf, which is an individual game. My son is number two in the state. Since I know what it takes to play a sport at a high level, a lot of parents are not educated to get presented to some of our kids to say that I have a dream to do whatever, and then the dream stops at when they turn 11 or 12 years old because the parent cannot afford it. So across the board, I'm trying to level that playing field for them to proceed down the education road or down the road for athletics to probably take care of them, and then one day be able to say, you know what, mom, I like to have a job like this that pays and starts at $50,000 or $60,000 a year to work their lives up to be able to take care of a family. That's really my goal, and I think that's really my purpose for being here on Earth.
Yeah. Well,
Somebody gave me a chance to do it for me, and I would like to give it back to give them the same chance.
yeah. And you highlight some really important points about the cost that exists. And, when we think about, even basketball or football, the cost of entry is, a pair of
Wow.
shoes, right? And, a hoop or a field and a ball.
Wow.
And we typically know somebody who, not maybe not professional, but we know somebody who around the neighborhood is a better player than you. So then you watch them and you get them. There's just not the same accessibility in a sport like tennis. Many urban communities don't have tennis courts, or they don't have, tennis courts in the right locations. Then you have to have a racket. You have to have, balls. You have to know how the sport works, right? You have to know the rules of the game. So the barriers are a bit higher, and some schools don't even have a tennis program at all. So I think those are really valid points about accessibility, about education, and then that piece about sponsorship. Having someone like a Bill Cosby sponsor you, right? I'm sure it meant the world and was a difference maker. And to hear that
Definitely.
you're looking at paying it forward, I think that's an amazing thing. And I think that we undervalue what our contribution to someone else can be. And when we know that they're talented and that they're skilled, how can we, if we have the means to do it, support them in seeing that dream and that vision come to life. I think that's something in the Black community that we don't do as much as we could, but it's also somewhat foreign, right? If we haven't had that experience to pay forward. So,
Right.
so thank you for highlighting and illuminating that. Um, you know, um, in the film, it was very evident that Arthur Ashe faced frequent discrimination as a black man in the sport that was dominated by white people. And so, while he was directly impacted by prejudice, he was hesitant to speak out because, as the movie put it, in the South, if you get angry too quickly, your life could be in danger. So, I'm wondering, do you feel like we still live in a world where that is the case?
Are
And
are you speaking to me?
either of you, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, out of respect, Mr. Robinson, the floor is yours first.
Okay. Let me speak on this at a high level right now today. And I just Detroit. I'll talk about Detroit Golf Club. Detroit Golf Club, as being black, the average black person could never play over there. Not today. I mean, there's blacks who are members there, but if um, you're looking at a membership is going to start at $50,000 or $60,000, and then you're looking at dues, and you're looking at not only a due that's during the golf season, you're looking at a due that's being wrapped around yearly. So you got a $15,000 ticket a year to play there. Then you got what we call caddy rights, where some of the black kids can come in off the street and learn how to caddy to make a job for themselves or understand how the game supposed to go if you play it. And then there are certain tennis clubs that I know that are private. Detroit Tennis and Squash Club on 14 Mile and Drake is private. They have a dues where you pay the longer you stay in the club, uh, they raise the rate up to what they call a prime. And the prime means that the family could come in and play anytime that they wanted to, um, which they didn't have to pay for court time, but you have a dues to pay every month to get the free court time or um, enter into some of the tournaments or enter into some of the junior programs. We're talking about massive fees. When we start talking about basic um, uh, after school programming, or we want to join a team like the basketball team or uh, the football team, basically we coming out to say, well, this kid weighs this much and he's this height. Maybe we can teach him how to play football. Or this kid looks like this, doesn't eat that much. Maybe we can teach that kid how to swim. So the pecking order is a little bit different because the kid doesn't have a lot of education on to what they really want to be. I mean, this is me in teaching tennis for the years that I've been teaching it. The parents find out. It's like if I taught your kids right now. My grade to you is if I touch your kid, they will become a tennis player. And you're looking at me like, yeah, right. But when it comes true, now we got some problems because we got money problems. We got a lot of, if you're talking about equality, we got to get your kid into the what I call the group of If they're 12 years old, they have to look at the best 12-year-olds in the state of Michigan or the best 12-year-olds in the Midwest United States. And so, again, how do we level equality? If you got kids at country clubs, we can't compete. So um, I'm just looking at the forces of how we need to take this on. These are some real hard knocks if we don't have the education to move the ball forward. And so I can keep talking about this all night. That's a great question. But equality, it doesn't come from Kmart or Walmart or Dunham's. You're going to have to pay for your equality, which is information. And information costs a lot of money to move the ball forward.
Yeah. I
And
think you spoke to, and Dr. Lewis said this earlier as well, about the barriers that exist today. We're not necessarily talking about a sign that says that no blacks allowed or anything like that. We're
right,
talking about a financial barrier that in many instances is artificial, right? That creates a barrier,
right,
and perpetuates privilege, and has nothing to do with someone's talents, aptitudes, or abilities. And we could talk about that in sports. We could talk about that in school. We could talk about that in so many different healthcare.
right,
In so many different arenas, and we're impacted by those things, um, and they affect us on a day to day basis. And so, like, how do we cultivate the ability to make change in those areas? Dr. Lewis, if you'd like to respond to the same question, or we can move on to another question up to you.
Um, well, I just have to just add my small piece when we just start talking about accessibility. Through a lot of different former programs in the city of Flint, I was exposed to different sports, like tennis. We had tennis at Pearson Elementary, for the school formerly known as Pearson, under the direction of Otis Spann, and it was taught by Cheryl Hawk. And so I was exposed to tennis through there. I didn't have an appreciation for it because I've never seen it. Because in my house, we wasn't playing tennis, we wasn't watching tennis. So tennis was not something that we did. So
mhm,
although I played, it was, as they say, it was okay, but it
mhm,
wasn't the popular sport like good old basketball, where in order to have entry into basketball, you needed something with the hole on top, a hole on the bottom. You didn't really need a hole on the bottom because you could just get the ball out of the item, and you just need a pole to put it on. So, and a ball, and those were very accessible. If you had a bucket, if you had a crate, my neighbor behind me had a basketball crate affixed to a tree, and they called that playing hoop, and they were some of the best in the neighborhood. But the
wow,
point was, it cost literally next to nothing. With the football, only thing you need is open space and one football, and you have basically what you need to get started with football. But with tennis, a little different. Do you have your Wilson or your Rawling rackets? Do you have the designated space to play? And a lot of areas did not have that, and coming up with the National Youth Sports Program, like I say, they also exposed us to other things as well. But that accessibility key, it speaks volumes. So you don't really have a sign saying, this sport is not for you. But when you're priced out, when you can't afford the equipment, then that sort of kind of is I get the new way, or the covert way of saying this sport is not for you. So do something more for you. And so that's what a lot of inner city kids, that's what we face. We didn't have the money for it, nor was it popular. So therefore we went with what we had the funds to maintain and what was popular. And because a lot of people that look like us, that we saw and that they highlighted, they thrived in those areas, basketball and football. So that's all we knew, and until Venus and Serena came out, and it gave us a new aha moment of what could be and what's also available out here in the field. But then again, then that's when we start questioning and inquiring about entering these spaces. But like swimming and tennis and those things like that, it costs, yeah, it costs a little more. So when you have costs, instead of saying poor people not welcome, who don't have Bill Cosby sponsoring, we just look to do something else.
Yeah, no, no, great point. And I think that's something that, if we had much more time, we could really dig deep into is just that accessibility piece. But I think anytime you need any sort of special facilities or special equipment, right, we're going to see that the makeup of the folks that are participating in that sport is not representative of the general population, right? And so we see
Absolutely.
that in hockey, we see that in swimming. Many urban communities don't have community pools. Um, and a hockey rink, those are few and far between anyway, or ice skating, would be another one. Um, and so, no, really, really, really valid point there. So I want to give each of you an opportunity if there was anything from the film that really resonated with you or a moment that was a favorite moment for you. And we'll start with Mr. Robinson.
uh, ROTC, I did not know that Ash took on the part of thinking about going into the Army through the ROTC. I I just thought Ash was, he looked like a weakling to me when, as he walked around during college. I'm like, oh my God. And then, playing with him, he's thin anyway. He's not a muscle guy, but super strong. I mean, super, super strong. But that stuck out with me, that he took on a path of helping himself to help us going into the ROTC. And I thought that was quite special for me to see that. I didn't know that piece about him.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
that
thought
is,
that was a highlight.
yeah, that's very interesting. And then Dr. Lewis, did you have a favorite moment or something that you didn't know that was a highlight?
Well, one of the highlights for me was when Mr. Ash found his voice. you know um he was, as you say, he was going through the motions. He moved to St. Louis and everything, and people, they were just looking at him, calling the other athletes, calling him names. Remember, they call him Arthur Ashe, Kareem Abdul Jabbar. I mean, yeah, so they're looking at him like, we speaking up and we standing up front, and and you're not representing the cause. You're not representing the people. And when he came into his own, when he had his aha moment, and he learned how to assert his voice, well, he decided how he was going to assert his voice. His voice was more powerful than those speaking the loudest. Because when he began to take his stance against social injustices, he didn't have to come out yelling. He didn't have to come out using choice, I'll say, offensive words. But just like the gentleman, he was the sociologist who was speaking. He was saying that Arthur Ashe used to say stuff that was more cutting that could ever come out of his mouth, but the way he prepared his statements was very significant. And so when he found his voice, he began to utilize his voice for the good. And I appreciated that. Although it wasn't in quote unquote other people's time, it wasn't how they did it. It wasn't about him doing it other people's way. It was about him finding the way that best fit him. And he advocated for people using his voice, and he encouraged everyone else to do the same. And so that really struck out to me, because everybody was trying to coin him as a sellout because, soft spoken and stuff. But when he began to speak, he was heard loud and clear.
Yeah, yeah. And I think he had the ability to navigate different spaces than some of the other folks that were maybe perceived as a little bit more radical. So the impact was different. And I think that just, speaks to how we all have our own strategies and ways of doing things and, appreciating other strengths and utilizing, and leveraging those strengths and those different strategies. For me, one of the things that stuck out was how he applied for a visa to South Africa 3 times, and he didn't. He was rejected. He said he wanted to play at Ellis Park, and it's a prestigious tennis court that blacks weren't allowed to play at. And so he went to the UN and asked them to boycott um, some of the tennis tournaments, and it got to a place where he was allowed to go, and they said, "Oh, we would love to have him come and play." Well, at some point, people don't want the backlash, right? So they shared that they would love to have him go, but he went to play tennis because that's what he said he was going to do. But the moment where he was almost late to a match because he was spending time with the people, and he really wanted South Africans to see a free black man, and he wanted to see them to see a black man at the top of his craft in an all white environment. And so I thought that was just a really cool and strategic move that he made. That he was there for a dual purpose. I was just so heartbroken and so disappointed he did not win the tournament, but he was there. He showed up. He came to do something, and I think that it certainly made a difference. And then just all of the people that he knew and the people that he was interacting with, and the friends that he had, and I think it was Ambassador Andrew Young performed his wedding. And I've had a chance to meet him twice, and fantastic, phenomenal legend in his own right as well. So as we wrap up our time together, I want to share a quote, or actually it was a quote from the movie, and it was actually a really profound moment in the film, and I think everybody thought the film was over because it just left you thinking, oh my gosh, right? And so it was toward the end of the film, and the narrator said, Arthur Ashe used his voice, and then there was this pause, and it said, what did you do? And so my question would be, how does that resonate with you? What did you do? And what legacy do you hope to leave?
Mr. Robinson.
Uh, um, this might sound a little weird, but I always have followed Christ. Uh, Jesus is definitely my hero. The one to get on the cross for me. I'm the one to follow. I know about tennis. I love the game. I love the kids who I've ever taught. I mean, I've the legacy. If I talk legacy of me, but this is not about me. This is about absolutely if I can get the kid to be saved and understanding that he has a future or she has a future. Um, and then I'll take off there. What did I do? Is trying to hold on to family because a lot of our families are definitely broke. Um, if we don't get back with that, uh, there's a lot of single family homes. There's a lot of broke homes. Mother and fathers are. Um, if I just go down that trail, I mean, I think y'all know more as much as I do. We have a lot of single parent homes. We don't know if the kids are eating today or not eating today. So, um, what did I do? Is try to follow and keep preaching the word that this is the part that uh, making a kid good or just collect your blessings and use them the right way. That would be what I do. I mean, that is really what I do. So I don't have a flashback to throw in somebody's face. It's just this is what I do. I mean, and that's where I'm at with that.
I love that. That's going to be one of our Walter Robinson quotes when we have your documentary. This is what I do. I love that. I appreciate that so much. Dr. Lewis, same question. What did you do, right? And what do you see as your legacy and your life's work, if we would?
Well, my life work and is to take care of God's people. And I didn't understand that. I was trying to go so many other different ways because, as you know, I had no intention on being anyone's counsel person at all. However, I asked God to show me. I said, you know my beginning and you know my end. So go ahead and assist me with my middle. Show me your plan for my life. Because no matter what I have in store for myself, It has no comparison to my purpose and for what I was created to do. So, and he put me strategically in a place to take care of his people, because so many people have poured into me in different ways in this city. I would be remiss not to give that back. And so my goal is to definitely make sure that I'm using my voice as an amplifier for the voiceless. So everything I say and do is not original, but I'm using my voice to make sure that the voiceless and the muted are heard. And I'm grateful to be in a spot to do that. And so I know this is definitely not a political platform, but we have it's a lot of great things that have been happening in the city of Flint, and we have a lot more great things to come. And I just want to make sure that I am helping lead the change. I'm helping to be the voice of the people who have been silenced for so long. So that's how I'm using my voice. I'm using my voice as an amplifier for those that have been silenced, so we can move not just our city forward, not just our country forward. I would like to move the African American race forward, because we deserve it, and it's time. So I want to move everything forward with my voice.
Okay.
And I think you're both, really speaking to, the core of this film. Someone who was extremely talented, and reached a point in their career where there was a crossroads and a decision had to be made. And I heard you say it, Liddell, this wasn't your intention, right? This is not what you had planned. And Mr. Robinson, I don't know if you always wanted to be a tennis instructor and have, thousands of students and all of that. But, we reach a place in our lives where we have to make a decision on what person are we going to be? Who are we becoming? Um, and, how do we want to be remembered? And sometimes we'll get a documentary, but most often we'll have people and individuals that remember the contribution that we made to their lives on an individual level. Some of us will have the opportunity to impact policy and impact legislation and, change laws. So I just encourage, all of those that are watching, all of those that are listening to, one, see the film. It's available. And I think it costs about $4 or so to see. See the film. You'll be inspired. You'll be encouraged. You'll be challenged in some ways. But then also just think about what your place is in the world, what causes, what people, what careers, whatever it is, right? You can be a part of to make and affect positive change. Arthur Ashe did it. Walter Robinson is doing it, has done it. Dr. Lewis has done it, is doing it. And there's just so much work to do, and we all have a place in a part to doing that. And so, with that, I want to invite everybody on December 1st to our next film. We're showing a film called Aftershock, and Aftershock is it's a heavy discussion, and it's really about the about mothers in health, their maternal health. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Maternal health and the disparities that exist, and the outcomes that sometimes mothers face. So it'll be heavy, but we'll have a good panel discussion. It'll be a good film to see. And again, another one of those things that's going to challenge us to make changes as a society, and ensure that we're um, protecting women, protecting our families, and making sure that we're doing right by people in our communities. So invite everybody to come out on December 1st and see that with us at Flint Institute of Arts. That one will tell you also how that's available otherwise, and then we'll have a panel discussion on December 3rd following that film. I want to give a special thanks to Mr. Walter Robinson. It's been a pleasure being with you. You are an icon and a legend in your own right, and thank you for all that you have done and all that you are doing and all that you will do. Because I am hearing you've got a plan, you got some things that are in the works. Keep us apprised of what those things are, and if we can help and support in some way, we'd be happy to do so. And Dr. Lewis. It's
Well,
it's never easy being in politics, right? And it's never easy being a community leader and being a champion for good. But keep doing what you're doing, and we'll do our part to make the world a better place. And Mr. Robinson, you wanted to say something?
Yes, one of my coaches, Lisa Robinson. If you like to take a free lesson, she's willing to give you one. Her number is 248.
Oh, wait. Everybody can
Yeah.
hear her phone number. So can everybody get a free lesson, or is this just for us?
This is just for you.
Oh, okay, we'll get it offline. We'll get it offline.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
But
Everybody will
but
give her a call.
but I would like to say this, and I think Mr. Robinson, this might do his heart a little glad. So in 2023, we're looking to make some major additions to one of our major second ward parks called Bassett Park. And so one of the major renovations is to redo our tennis courts and gates.
Wow.
Yep. So we can get those back up and running and being used. So hopefully we'll have someone as passionate, as dedicated as Mr. Robinson to help us utilize those courts, to put some bodies on those courts, to train up some great people
I
on those
want
courts.
you. I want you to look up a name from Flint. Her name is Kendra Howard. She's a tennis player that came out of Flint. I sent her to UCLA.
Oh,
Her father was a Flint worker for um, one of the car companies. I'm not sure what's up there, but he was a Flint worker who came to me back in the early '90s. And Kendra Howard, top 10 in the Midwest United States,
Wow.
top 20 in the nation,
Awesome.
who came out of Flint.
Okay,
Kendra Howard.
we will definitely look her up.
Yeah.
And, I'm happy to hear that there'll be tennis courts. I'll come over and play. And I certainly will connect with Lisa and see if she'll give me that lesson. And then we'll, see if there's other opportunities where we can
Please.
align and we can, kind of increase exposure for some young people and for some of us older people. Because we need it too. All right. Well, thank you both for being with us. Thank you to those who have watched with us or are watching the replay. We will see you soon and hope that you have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.